Welcome to technical session number 37. Getting up there. I remember back when we were in technical session number 1. Seemed like that was, 2 years ago. But today we're going to be talking about maintaining Windows. We talked about the different versions of Windows we use. We talked about implementing hard drives, networking. Now we got to talk about maintaining these things. And throughout this technical session, we're going to be talking about identifying common preventative maintenance and updates necessary to keep your Windows running smoothly. We're also going to be talking about how to perform maintenance updates using appropriate command lines. So we get to learn more about command lines. I know you guys are sitting there going, gee, can we please talk more about the command line? The CLI is calling to me, and I need more tools to be able to play around with my system. Well, your wish is granted. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about those and get into some other command lines that you can use on a pretty regular basis. So we're going to talk about using those for updates, preventative maintenance checks, and we're going to identify some common pitfalls that occur when you're performing your maintenance checks and updates and how to kind of solve those. BSMs we want to keep in mind for this particular technical session are customer focus. Because as we are well aware, if we don't have customers, we don't have a job. So we want to make sure that they are first and foremost in our mentality. We want to make sure they have a good experience, that we are taking care of them. Also, personal responsibility, taking responsibility for our actions. If we say we're going to do something, we follow through with what we say we're going to do. And then the flip side, if we do something good, take ownership of the good things we have done as well. Always remember, people often forget about this in business, in jobs, when you're negotiating your salary, when you're talking about pay raises, all that kind of stuff during your reviews. You are your best advocate. And you need to have measurable things that you can show that you have helped your team. All right. Basic overview on Windows maintenance. Let's see here. Stephanie, can you start us off, please?
Window maintenance overview, best practices. Preventive maintenance is more than just manipulating hardware. It also encompasses running software utilities on a regular basis to keep the system fit. These utilities can include scheduling, backups, checklists, defragmentation, and updates. Purpose of routine maintenance: keep system files structured area free, prolongs computer life, elevative, slow performance. Alleviates slow performance.
There we go. Thank you so much. My biggest complaint with Windows machines forever, part of what forced me to convert to Mac, was computer life. Granted, I didn't know much about IT at the time. I hadn't started to delve into that IT field, but to a layman, the Windows computers would become almost unusable after a couple of years. They would get so slow and bogged down. And part of that, I admit, that was me not knowing how to maintain the systems properly. But that was one of the things that caused me to convert it. But we're going to talk about some of those tools today, so you can actually get a pretty good long life out of your Windows PC and stop the slow encroachment of just declining performance over time and all that kind of fun stuff. So some common preventative maintenance tools we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about our scheduled backups. It's going to be a little bit different than a system restore. So we're going to be talking about the different types of backups we have, because there's more than one type of backup. We're going to be getting into disk maintenance, Windows updates, and talking about the difference between updates and patches, and we'll get into patch management, driver and firmware updates, and finally antivirus and malware protection updates. So first, let's talk about scheduled backups. Now, we were talking about system restore, where it would kind of take a snapshot or a copy of your system settings and the way your system is set up right now. But remember how we said it would not copy your system, your files and applications that you keep. So your movies, your data and stuff like that, it doesn't keep or copy that stuff when you do a system. But you can do what is a full backup or a type of backup to back up your media, your forms, your data, your videos, your music, all that kind of fun stuff. And depending on the type of organization you're in, you need to have some sort of disaster recovery plan in place for an enterprise or any kind of business. Like what happens, like I live in Florida. Hurricanes are a thing. So if I was going to be running a business that operates globally or that operates even nationally, I need to have some sort of backup plan in place in case a hurricane hits Florida. So you have to have some sort of plan in place. We'll get more into that kind of stuff in a couple T sessions, but just kind of previewing that. But what plays into this is the types of storage you use. So are you going to utilize on-site storage? So local drives, network servers, stuff like that, are you going to have that on-site, on location? Are you going to have off-site storage in a cloud service? Is that going to be a private, public, hybrid, community? What kind of cloud are you going to set up? Where is that going to be located? Are you going to use a third party? And then there are predominantly three types of backups we need to be aware of. And then we have what's called a working copy. So easiest one to remember, full backup. That is a complete backup of everything you have on your system. Benefits, all in one, everything's there, everything is copied, you don't have to worry about anything else. Beautiful. Downfall, it takes a long time to do this. So if you're operating a business that is 24 hours a day, this can cause a lot of downtime if you're trying to do full backups every night. You could have a couple hours of downtime every night, depending on how big your systems are. So full backups aren't necessarily feasible to do every single day. So we would have other kinds of backups that we would call either incremental or differential. So an incremental backup backs up everything since the last either full or incremental backup. So if I did a full backup, let me get a little thing here. So if I did like a full backup on Sunday night, Monday night I did an incremental, Tuesday night I did an incremental, Wednesday night I did an incremental. So this was everything as of Sunday night, my full. The incremental would be everything that has changed since Sunday on Monday. The one I did on Tuesday would be everything that changed since Monday. So it goes back to the next incremental backup or full, whichever comes first. Wednesday would be everything since Tuesday. So if my computers went down on, say, Thursday, I would need all 4 of these in order to bring my system up to today. Because I would upload the full, and then the incremental on top of it, and from Monday, the incremental on top of it from Tuesday, and then the incremental on top of it from Wednesday. I would need all 4 backups in order to have the most up-to-date information, right? The next type we have is called a differential. and it does all the changes from the last full backup. So if I did a full on Sunday, incremental on Monday, incremental on Tuesday, Wednesday, I do a differential. And then say again, Thursday, my systems go down. The differential backs up everything since the last full, correct? So then I don't need these two incrementals in the middle. I only need the full and the differential to be back up. Is this making sense? The nice things about the incremental and the differentials, they take a lot less time to do these backups because you're only backing up what changed versus everything. So your company will likely have a schedule Monday through Sunday, and usually what it'll be is a full backup on Sunday, because that is typically when the lowest traffic is, incremental on Monday. I'm gonna incremental on Tuesday, differential on Wednesday, and then incremental on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They may opt to do a differential on Saturday, I don't know. But this would be something like what your backup schedule would look like. So full, because Sundays are usually your slow days, so you can take more downtime. And then incremental. Once you do your differential, these two incrementals no longer need to be there. And then you would have incrementals until Sunday again, and then you would do another full, and then you could recycle your drives if you need to. So if I lost my drive, say on, so let's do this, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So if I lost my systems on Friday, how many drives and which ones would I need to get me back up and running?
Just the differential and the full backup.
Okay, so Gali says the full and the differential.
Oh, and then one more in the Thursday incremental.
And the Thursday incremental, okay?
Yeah.
So you say the full, the differential, and the incremental. Does anybody disagree with this? No? Okay, he is correct. Now, I would take the time to remember the difference between these. You are likely to face a couple questions on the exam with regards to, they may ask for a definitional question as to what type of backup does this, or they may do a scenario just like I told you, where they would say, this is their schedule. This is the day that the drives went bad. What drives would they need to do backups to get back up and running? Now, these may be stored on site. These may be stored off site, depending on the disaster recovery plan that you have. Although they may keep working copies, which are like shadow copies, essentially, that may be partial or full, that are kept on site to kind of get you up and running immediately. If you just had like a server go down, you could put another server in place and then cycle everything up as quick as possible. Are there any questions on this? I would take a screenshot of this page for those of you who have not. All right. All right. Other types of backups we use restore points, where it takes the condition of the system at that time. Remember, we use system restore for this. You can use for your data, Windows system protection, or excuse me, for your system restore to set restore points. You can have them done every week, every day, every month, however you want to do them. And anytime you're going to do any major change to your system, like an update or a patch or something like that, take a restore point right then, so that if it does not work and does not go well, you can roll it back. So we talked about that one earlier. Generally, they're taken at least about every 24 hours, but you can set your schedule however you wish. All right. Questions on a restore point? This one should be kind of a bit of a review. All right. Disk maintenance. Let's see here. Kevin, can you read for us, please?
If I must. Disk maintenance. Hard drive maintenance can be broken down into two distinct functions. Checking the disk occasionally for failed clusters and keeping data organized on the drive so it could be accessed quickly. Error checking. Scan disk and check disk are command line utilities to check for bad clusters on drives. Current Windows versions calls the tool error checking. Mac OS X uses disk utility, while Linux uses FSCK. I thought that said something else.
We're glad you went with your instincts and spelled it out.
When they find bad clusters, it puts a flag to avoid using those clusters anymore and recovers the data from them if possible. Perform check disks on Windows. Right-click the drive in Windows Explorer and select Properties from the shortcut menu. 1. Click the Tools tab and click Check Now. 2. In the Check Disk dialog box, check Automatically Fix File System Errors and scan for and attempt recovery of bad sectors. 3. Click Start.
Thank you. So we have check disk, which is a command line utility for Windows. Mac uses disk utility, and then FSCK, which is file system checker for Linux. I promise you, if you are asked a question for which utility you use to repair a disk or to check for errors, all three of these are going to be in there. So pay attention to which one they're asking about. If they do not tell you, assume it's Windows. So Windows is your default. If they do not tell you you're operating on another system, if you're on a Mac or if you're on Linux, they're going to say Linux. Unless they give you the command and they say, which operating system is this on? Because I've seen it both ways. Questions so far on this? All right. So here's a graphic of what it looks like when you get in there under your tools. So check your disk and see if you have any errors. Nice, quick, easy. The other tool we're going to talk about, defragmentation. Melody, can you please read for us?
Defragmentation rearranges fragments or parts of files to each file is stored in contiguous clusters. It increases drive access dramatically. Cluster, also called file allocation unit, is a group of whole sectors in a file system. The number of sectors in a cluster is fixed, and whole clusters store a file. As files are written and deleted from a drive, clusters are used, released, and used again. Unused space at end of last cluster is called slack and is wasted free space. Moving arm of drive may have to move all over the drive to collect all fragments of the file, which slows down performance.
Thank you. So we keep seeing this term come up, contiguous clusters. That is basically just like a fancy way of saying all of the chunks of the same file, all the things that are the same. So if you have an audio file and it's an older hard drive, it may not be able to save all of that audio file in one chunk. So it saves it all over the drive wherever it can find enough space to put these clusters in. What defragmentation does is it takes all those chunks and starts writing all the files so that everything is with all of the parts of itself. So instead of having that audio file scattered all over the place, it's going to rewrite it so that they're all together. That's what they mean by contiguous. It's kind of like form factors, just a real fancy way of saying shape and size. So you need, I think, at least 20 to 25% available space on a hard drive to be able to properly perform defragmentation. That's something you kind of want to keep in your memory, which is why if drives get too full, they start to slow down a whole lot. Partially because of how long it takes them to, retrieve and write data. The other part being you're more restricted on your page and swap file. So if you run out of RAM, you don't have the drive as backup. All right. Graphical representation of your disk defragmenter here. It looks like a D with a bunch of puzzle pieces on it. And you can go ahead and defragment your drive from here. If you have not done this in a while, it can take a very long time to do. So it's one of those things, if you haven't done it in a while and you have a mechanical drive, go ahead and run it last thing of the day. So set it to run after you've done everything you need to do and you're basically leaving or shutting down for the day so that it can kind of run and not disturb your work. Same thing if you're doing this for a customer and they're in the middle of their workday, schedule this tool to run later. Don't run it in the middle of their workday because that could slow them down for a couple hours while this is running. So not fun. All right, disk cleanup. Ogali, can you read for us, please?
Disk maintenance, disk cleanup, get rid of 4 types of files in the recycle bin, temporary internet files, downloaded program files, and temporary files. Check for errors, compress folders, move files and folders to other drives, delete unneeded files occasionally. Window require about 15% hard drive free space.
There you go. Thank you very much. So it does a kind of a laundry list of things. Like, remember how we talked about your computer maintains kind of a cache file. Every time you log into a website, it's not loading that whole website every time. It keeps the majority of that information stored on your computer in what's called a cache file. And it only is getting updated on a few pieces, of that website each time it goes. Maybe advertising banners, stuff like that. Google, it may just be you know, whatever the banner is for Google, because they change that from time to time. But the vast majority of the website is going to be about the same every time. Sometimes they'll do a big change to the website and you don't realize that until you refresh and it actually reloads the whole page, and then you see the changes they've made. But over time, if you do a lot of internet surfing, stuff like that, all these temporary files, these internet files can kind of bog down your system. So this kind of cleans house, gets rid of that stuff, empties out that recycle bin that everybody seems to forget about. Although I will say, people forgetting about the recycle bin has saved them a lot of times, because they'll go back in and find that file that they've deleted. So, you know, we have seen that happen quite a lot. File compression, all that kind of fun stuff. Here's kind of what it looks like. Windows Explorer, right click the volume that you want to perform this on, select properties, click on your disk cleanup, and you can see this temporary system files that can be deleted, and click to clean up system files. And if you need even more space, you can go in and manage your files and delete them. Some of us may have experienced this on our phones when updates come in. It's like you need 2 gigs to do this update, and you only got 1 on your phone. You're sitting there looking for all those apps, like, you know, which ones do I want to give up? So you're scrolling through and you're like, yeah, you know, I've only used this app once, but I did pay 99 cents for it, so I don't want to give it up. You know, so you're trying to negotiate with yourself which apps you want to give up. You know, do I sacrifice this one app that I paid 99 cents for, or these 5 other apps that equal that same amount of space? You know, so kind of one of those things we have to do from time to time on our phones. All right, the all important and aptly named Windows update. Tomas, can you read for us, please?
Applet on the control panel used to keep an OS updated. It separates the different types of fixes into updates and service packs. Updates are individual fixes that come out fairly often. A service pack is a large bundle of updates plus anything else Microsoft might choose to add. Set on automatic download or install updates. They are applied without asking for permission. Can be set to look for them and ask for permission to install. Even disabled, which is not recommended. When issues arise after an install, they can be uninstalled through an applet in the control panel.
There you go. And it breaks it down into various types of updates that you need to pay attention to. You have your important, your recommended, and your optionals. And I think with regards to Windows 10, I don't think you can turn off automatic updates anymore, if I'm not mistaken. I think they disabled that feature, if I can't remember. If somebody has Windows 10, can you please verify that?
I have Windows 11, unfortunately.
Condolences. All right. Patch management. I love those stuff because most of the stuff is very straightforward. Patch management. JR, can you read for us, please?
Patch management is the process of keeping software updated in a safe and timely fashion. A patch updates a computer program to help fix an issue called bugs, and security patches to help vulnerabilities within the program. This can be set to automatically download and install. Windows Update can be configured in Windows 7 and Windows Vista to look for and install patches. Patches should always be checked on test machines before applying them to production machines. They may occasionally disrupt or affect operations your company relies on.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we talked about this with regards to having, you know, the virtual machines, where the virtual machines valuable, where you can create different versions of the systems that you use in operations on a regular basis. Like you can set the version and service pack level, you know, for the most common systems you have in your production line. And then you can take these patches and apply it to each of them and see if it's going to disrupt the software you use on a regular basis or crash any of these systems, so you know not to roll them out. In the NIT, you will be asked to test patches prior to rolling them out to everyone else. You usually have things like this turned off so that you can test them first before they roll out, and usually let employees know, please do not do updates until we've had time to, test them. That's usually on the phones, not necessarily on the desktop, because you can, in the group rules that you set up for each area, you can tell them, no, we do not want them to have access and allow updates or what have you. But you don't want to roll out an update and have it not function with your homegrown application that you built for your business and it crash all your systems. Then you got to spend all that time rolling back each individual machine to get them back up and running. So saves a lot of downtime, can save a ton of money. So make sure you test before implementation. Driver and firmware updates. Annette, can you read first, please?
Driver firmware updates. Program use driver, which are small software file and sometimes need to be updated to reflect change in hardware. Firmware is any software that is built into hardware device and usually stored in flash ROM. Firmware and driver updates are often released by hardware vendors. You should regularly check their site for a patch and updates that you need to download and install.
Beautiful, thank you. So any of these beautiful, wonderful peripherals that we use on a daily basis, headsets, microphones, monitors, keyboards, mice, printers, touchpads, time to time, they update these drivers. They update these patches. But they send out these patches to update the drivers so we can either get more functionality or functionality runs smoother, or it's able to function better with most recent updates for operating systems. So this is something that we want to check on a regular basis to make sure. With regards to firmware, if we are updating our BIOS and we have a power interruption, what happens?
System becomes a paperweight.
There you go, very expensive paperweight. Otherwise known as bricking your device. I'll tell you, it is zero fun when this happens. I'm still bitter about my Wii U. I know they were a terrible system, Wii U, but still I paid for it.
Wait, you updated the firmware on the Wii U?
Yeah, well, it ran an update, and then the update. Yeah, it says you have to run an update. As I was running an update, we had a power surge, shut down while it was doing the update, and lost my Wii U. So. And then I sit there and look, and they're like, yeah, we no longer support any repairs to the system. Would you like to buy a Switch? So that was pretty much how that went down. Yes, I bought a Switch. So yeah, we need to be very careful when we're updating our firmware. In that particular case, it would have been nice if they told me your firmware needs updating, so that I would know to take extra precautions for something like that. But it is what it is. All right, antivirus and malware updates. We're going to be getting into this a little bit more this week when we get into my personal favorite subject, security. I do personally like it. I like talking about it. I find it interesting. Melody, I know it's not one of your favorites, but we'll get through it. If I get astray, I'll ask and see if I'm in line or not.
I know as soon as I get into it, I'm gonna be paranoid for like weeks.
Years.
Oh boy.
The more I learn about it, the worse I get. In fact, was it at the end of lunch, I was just talking to Rachel. I was like, people say I am paranoid and all that stuff, but I'm starting to think I'm an optimist. So, but we will we'll talk about it a little bit more starting tomorrow. I think we have introduction to security tomorrow. All right, anti-malware. Ying, can you please read for us?
An anti-malware program such as antivirus protects the PC in two ways. It can work in an active seek and destroy mode, work in passive sentry mode. Since protecting the integrity of a computer system is a vital part of everyday maintenance, ensure the program that is in charge of security is up to date. New viruses and other malware appear daily, and antivirus needs to know about them through updates. The list of viruses is called the definition file.
Excellent, thank you, Dean. So yeah, definition file, you have hundreds, if not thousands of new viruses that are discovered every single day. So it is good to update these definition files as often as you can. Most of them are set to update automatically now. It used to be you had to manually go in and request this information. So if like you didn't update your definitions list for like 2 or 3 months, all kinds of nasty stuff could get on your system. In this, they often, they work in an active seek and destroy mode, which obviously takes up more processing power, more system resources, things like that. And then there's passive sentry, where it's kind of looking at things that are coming in and just comparing that against the definitions list and saying, yep, that's okay. Yep, no, that's not okay. Yes, that's okay. Where active seek and destroy is kind of looking for stuff that isn't on that definition list. So it's using what's called a heuristic algorithm. And basically that is just a really fancy way of saying behavior. So it's looking for certain types of behaviors. And if it sees systems exhibiting these particular behaviors, it's going to assume there's a virus at fault and it's going to take action to try to prevent it. All right. Good one for a quick screenshot, just to look and see how you access the various maintenance tools on your system. It's just kind of a nice little consolidated one for you to use as well. Although I will say recovery images nowadays are typically kept on USBs and not CDs or DVDs at this point. Questions so far? Yeah, there is no recovery mode for Wii. Yeah, no, that sucker wouldn't even boot. Like, it would turn on and it would just error. It was fried. I think I still have it too. I now have this thing where I have to make sure that electronic devices are thoroughly unrecoverable before I get rid of them. Especially if they've had any sort of payment information on them. The all exciting and wonderful command line tools. I know you've all been waiting for this. Oscar, can you please read about command line for us? Just the first page.
Command line tools, task kill. The taskkill.exe utility is used to terminate processes. Those processes can be identified by either name or process ID number, PID. And the process can exist on a machine where the administrator is sitting, which is the default, or on another machine. An example would be taskkill /im chrome.exe/f. Keep reading?
Yeah, go for it.
Task list is a list of all the running processes and their process ID number, similar to what you see in the GUI by using Task Manager. By default, it shows the processes on the current machine, but the /S switch can be used to see the processes on the remote machine. Rexec. The Rexec command authenticates you on a remote PC and lets you run commands. For example, Rexec remote ID defrag d:/.
So like if you're a administrator on a domain, you can use your credentials to authenticate you on another system so that you can run elevated commands.
Gotcha. So
So
it's like
this would be-
remote
Kind of.
execute? Okay.
Yeah. So task listen, task kill, I believe you guys have already done a few labs with regards to these in Coursera. And I'm not sure about test out if you have. If you have not, don't worry, you'll get practice on it in here. I know for a fact in becoming a power user, you will definitely get practice doing this in Linux where it's not task kill, it's just kill. And looking up the PID numbers and stuff like that and using that. And I believe we talked about this earlier where the PID allows you to hit a specific instance of something happening. So if I have 30 Chrome applications open and only one of them is causing a problem, I could hit task kill Chrome and it would kill all of my Chrome applications, or I could find the specific PID of the one that's causing the problem and I can kill just that one. So it is a much more targeted approach rather than just saying kill all of that application. Next, two more commands. Gali, can you please read for us?
I knew he was gonna call me. I knew it. I was just waiting for it.
I sensed you wanted me to, so you had to.
It was literally thinking, I'm like, he's gonna say Galley, and he's like, Galley. Shutdown. The shutdown.exe utility can be used to schedule a shutdown, complete or restart locally or remotely. A variety of reasons can be specified and announced to the user for the shutdown. 3 parameters to be aware of are -S, turn the computer off, -R, restart the computer, with and I mean /M, why am I saying dash? /M, let you specify a computer on the other than this one. Bootrec, the bootrec.exe utility can be run to interact with the MBR, boot sector, or boot configuration data BCD store. The option for bootrec are /fix boot to write a new boot sector, /fix MBR to write a new MBR, /rebuild BCD to rebuild the BCD store, or /scan OS. To scan all disks for installation, the boot manager menu is not listing.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
This was the one that got me because I, for the life of me, could not remember this. The bootrec /fix MBR to fix the master boot record. So this was the one that tripped me up during the exam because there was a particular instance where you had some damaged boot files and you needed to repair it using the Windows recovery environment. And then that also required you going into command line in order to do this. So hint, hint, might want to remember that one. So in shutdown, I know we've done that one because I remember 2 Fridays ago, we did these labs on Friday, going over the ones from the previous week. So I know we've done that in test out. So that's a good one to practice as well. Other command line tools to kind of be aware of, MD, short for make directories. If you need to make new directories, to add files into and things like that. RD, if you've, a typo or, you want to get rid of an older directory or something like that. CD, which you may have used, which is to change directories. And then if you hit CD ... that goes to the very next folder, but behind you, it's the parent folder. So you can move up one line if you need to. And then del to delete files. I had a funny story because, when I was coming up on computers, we had to initiate everything out of DOS. You didn't boot into Windows, you booted into DOS. Then you had to execute into Windows to actually boot up Windows. So that was when I started on computers. So when I was in computer class, like intro to computers in college, the teacher was trying to figure out how to format a floppy disk from CLI. She couldn't remember how to do it. And I told her the command was del tree ***, which basically says to delete all directories and all subfolders. And thankfully she didn't hit Y after that. But that was many moons ago. And then copy, pretty straightforward, makes a copy of the file in a second location. And then there's xcopy, which is an extension of copy. It is designed to copy the directories and the files, where copy is just for the file. So xcopy is the directory and the files within it. Copy is just for the file itself. So definitely want to take a screenshot of. I know they have this page in the book, but straightforward. These are good ones to play around with. I suggest playing around with them in the sandbox and test out. So you can have some fun with that stuff. And if you mess up, it's not your computer. You can just restart the simulation. You're fine. All right. Continuing on our command line tools, Robocopy, short for robust file copy for Windows. This is in 7.8.8.1. And the nice thing about this is it keeps your NTFS file permissions intact in its operations. You'll get into what is called file inheritance. In the command line, you would need to use the robocopy, but if you did a copy within the GUI system, there are instances where like permissions will follow it, and there are instances where it doesn't. There's a good breakdown of it in the book, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. We talk about inheritance with regards to files. Disk part, you should be familiar with this one now. This is where you go to manage your partitions. To be able to extend, shrink, add, delete, format new volumes or existing volumes within your system. As an administrator, GPU update or GP update and GP result, great tools. It allows you to force the updating of the policies after you've made changes by executing the GP update command on a device. GP result lets you list all the currently applied and effective policies for a particular device. So you can actually run this on your machine and see what policies are applied to the machine you have. So the various group policies that you would use. Questions so far? All right. Last one of command line. I know you guys are sad. We'll try to find more if you want more. First you have system info. Gives you a detailed information about your system. You can have it give you specified information if you wish, kind of like the example they give here, system info, find virtual memory, give you information just based on that. Otherwise, it will give you everything. So a pretty detailed list. Then you have check disk. We talked about this one a little bit earlier. It attempts to repair any file system errors, bad sectors, recover data from there, all that kind of fun stuff. What is the Linux version of this? Bernard, what is the Linux version of check disk?
The Linux version of check disk. Is I'm lost.
It's okay.
I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, it's okay. First exposure, remember? Plus, we cold called you out on that one. JR, Stephanie, nice. File system checker, FSCK. So FSCK, file system checker, is the Linux version of check disk. Excellent. Good try. And then there is the other version of that, which is system file checker, which check disk is checking your actual physical hard drive to see if there's any bad sectors with it, all that kind of fun stuff. System file checker will check the files, comparing them to their original versions, like your operating system files, application files, comparing them to their original versions. And if it finds mismatched files or deleted files, it will go back and replace them with the originals. Because if some virus got in there and was trying to move stuff or delete stuff or alter it, then system file checker would be a way to correct these issues. You can scan now. If you want to do it right this moment, you can scan once, or scan boot, which scans the moment you reboot. Lastly, the infamous DIR, or directory list, which will give you all the directories that you have. Oh, there we go. You can do this within each directory. So like you can pull up a directory and then you can jump to that directory. And then once you're in that directory, you can get a directory within there and get all the subdirectories and work your way all the way down to the folders as you wish in that hierarchical structure. So DIR just stands for directory. Questions so far?
Yeah, on that system file checker, that's just for, like you said, OS versus applications. I can't bring back user files, like if someone deleted something they were looking for.
No, this would be system files.
Is there a way to bring back deleted files from a user?
Yes. Backups.
Right, that's what I thought. Yes, I got someone that gave me a laptop and they want me to find this key for them, this license key, and I'm like, I think it's gone.
Oh, a license key for their Windows?
Well, it's for something else, something to do with their business.
Oh, okay. If they deleted it,
yeah, they probably deleted it.
I would check their recycle bin first and see if anything's there.
All right.
That'd be the first place I'd look. File history, there you go. Don't do any disk cleanup until you've run searches. All right. Other administrative tools that we can use. This will be under your admin tools folder, or computer management, Microsoft Management Console, MMC. And they have their own help topics and stuff. So we talked about Windows Firewall with advanced security. We've talked about this before. Memory diagnostic, where it can check, the RAM on your computer, make sure it's functioning properly, tell you if there's any kind of issues with it, so you can kind of proactively take care of it. Print management, you can manage your printers, print servers, either directly connected or on a network. You can set your group policy. locally for that one system, or if you're an administrator for everybody else, you have the local security policy. And then component services, which has the component object model or COM components. And this is typically used by developers and administrators. Questions so far? Are we all experts on command line?
Nope.
That's
So-
okay. I sense a command line Jamboard in y'all's future. It's coming soon.
I think Coursera, the week 7 we're going into is getting that.
Oh yeah. You mean yeah, course 3?
At course 3, yeah.
Becoming a power user. Oh, you're gonna become more familiar with the command line in Windows and Linux than you ever thought you wanted to be. And your language is about to get a lot more colorful as well. So when working on labs, maybe make sure the children aren't in the room, because these are exceptionally frustrating for some users, not gonna lie. This is course 3 is the high watermark for Coursera. So, all right, other system utility programs that are pretty useful in troubleshooting and things like that. You have Performance Monitor, where you can kind of, examine how the programs are running, how they're affecting the performance of the computer, how much CPU usage is going on. Like, am I using 80, 90% of my CPU, or am I cruising around, 10 to 20%, which is kind of nice. It kind of gives you a real-time look as to what's going on in the system right there. You have Task Manager, where you can go in and look and see what's all running on your computer, and see if you can figure out which is the culprit program that's using up the majority of your resources. Make sure you know what it is you're killing before you kill it, and you can kill it at that point. Task Scheduler does exactly what it says. Remember how we talked about disk defragmenter? Takes a long time if you haven't done it in a while, could take several hours. Antivirus, like running a virus scanner on a computer, depending on how big of a hard drive you have, could take a couple hours. You can schedule these tasks to happen in the middle of the night, as you're leaving for the day, what have you. So you don't have to remember to do it later. You can just put it on the schedule, and then it's done, and you'll get the results later. Event Viewer. Anything we do on a computer is kept in a log somewhere. All those logs are kept in Event Viewer. So if we're having systems crashing, applications crashing, things like that, we can go into Event Viewer, look through the logs, and see if we can pinpoint what's happening right before the crash. If your system is crashing, it may tell you that a particular application is causing the system to crash. So we can figure these things out and try to troubleshoot and prevent these problems from occurring in the future. Shared folders, talked about that yesterday. Device Manager was where you would go to update all your drivers, all that kind of fun stuff. Any piece of hardware attached to your computer, it's in Device Manager. Disk Management, built-in Partition Manager. We talked about that one yesterday. It's a pretty powerful tool. And then finally, System Configuration, also known as MS Config. It allows you to edit and troubleshoot the operating system and start up processes. I highly encourage you to go on your system, go into MS Config, and see what programs start up whenever you boot your computer. You may be shocked at the amount of programs that start up every time you start your computer. And that might answer the question why it takes 5 minutes for your computer to boot up in the morning. So I highly recommend going in and looking at this whenever you get a chance. All right, here is a graphical look at Task Manager, where you can kind of see your CPU usage, you can see your spikes, things like this, your active performance at the moment. And it has a resource monitor here where you can look and see actively how much resources are being used. Sysconfig. Here's how you would access it. You go to your start menu, type in msconfig in your search box. The utility will open up in a new window. Click the startup tab, and you'll see your list of programs that start up whenever you turn your PC on. Again, this is a good one to go look at if you're having slow performance out of your system, or if it takes forever to boot up whenever you start up the day. How many people went in and changed the generic username and password on their router? I see nobody raising their hands. This is terrifying. If there's one thing you guys do after we end this class, is at least make it so that somebody can't just walk into your router at home.
I started security. I even went and bought like some antivirus software, and I'm just bugged out. So I'm doing
The next week is going to be a little rough for you, Golly, when we start talking about security. I apologize in advance.
Now, I really like after they finished the Coursera and the security, it was like really bad because it's like, and that's why I come down a little bit, because he literally said like you can't even do nothing. Even the best security, software that cover every layer still can get penetrated by somebody. So it's like you can't do anything to really
there is no foolproof method.
Exactly. So it's like there's nothing you can do. Anybody, as long as they're good enough or they have the time and resources, can hack your system. So
the question is how much time and effort do they want to spend on you? So we create layers to make ourselves less attractive to hackers. I have my wife's cousin who he asked me to come over and kind of help him, beef up some security, like his security, set up his security, like cameras and stuff like that, so that they're not going out to the web, that he can monitor them just from the house and all this fun stuff. And he was just absolutely convinced that there was a team of hackers that were spending their life trying to get into his systems. And I'm just like, you're not really worth their time. I'm not trying to be mean here, but they're going to be looking for other bigger fish, So, but still working on it. Yeah, it's not that, it's just one of those, like, they're not going to spend days working on trying to get into your systems when they could spend days trying to get into a bank, and accessing digital files there. So, but he just needed someone to kind of talk him through it so that he was more comfortable. Because if you're not in this world, computers can be scary. And the thought of somebody stealing your identity and opening up accounts in your name, it's kind of a like a terrifying thought.
Oscar, I may not be, we may be not important, but a credit card is definitely important, because my credit card got hacked like every other month by somebody. So I try to be not important, but they love my credit card.
Fortunately, that can be as simple. That could be extremely simple on getting a credit card number. And it happens a lot at, whenever you hand over a credit card and it goes out of your site, that's likely when it happens. Carbon copies, things like that. It was just like, I showed it to one of my yard leads when I was in transportation. He was like, somebody stole my credit card number. How the heck does it happen? He goes, I don't even use it online. I was like, they don't need to do that. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, let me see your credit card for 2 seconds. And I turned around and I just set it on the table and then just took a pen and zip across a piece of carbon paper. And I handed him his credit card back. And I was like, I now have your credit card information. It's that quick and easy.
Wow. Have you seen like those areas where they're like in the store, the people will like literally put like a fake ATM cover, like a fake, like,
and then they'll scan the copper, the carbon strip. There's also ones that are RFID readers, which is why they have RFID blocking wallets now. There's a lot of a lot of stuff. Yeah, card skimming.
Yeah, I definitely got one of those wallets.
So it's just one of those things, again, layers. We create layers, you know, it's that convenience versus security. So we try to balance it as best we can. You know, we got to live our life. So we can't just, you know, take our computer, bury it in a metal box in the backyard.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have to balance the level of security we need with the amount of convenience we want in our life. I mean, we don't want to be out there just YOLOing around, having a great time, you know, handing our credit card to everybody we see, and just like, yeah, can you go over there and buy that for me? You know, like we don't be that trusting, but, you know, we want to create a little bit more, convenience, and then just add some layers of security on top of it where we can.
I see the people do that in the bar. When you go to the bar and you just like give the bartender your card and say, you know, keep my tab open, and they just got your card the whole night. I'm like,
that's
okay.
where like your security mindedness goes down as your inebriation goes up. So that's the unfortunate part on that. All right. So quick video, Professor Messer, as we talked about earlier, he adheres to the dress code, just so you know.
By far, a scheduled backup is one of the most important maintenance tasks that you can configure on your computer. It's very common to configure these to perform once a day, once a week, and in some cases, once an hour. You need to configure what you'd like to back up. Maybe it's every file that's on your computer, maybe just the files that have been changed, or maybe you'd like to do an entire image of the computer. That way, if you need to completely rebuild this from scratch, you've got an exact duplicate of everything that was on that system. Sometimes you can provide these backups on-site, but of course, there are a number of off-site options as well. In Windows, for example, you have OneDrive that's in the cloud that can take all of your documents and not only store them locally on your computer, but also store a copy out in the cloud.
All right, resolving pitfalls. So as you're kind of doing these updates and the maintenance and all that kind of fun stuff, problems can occur. It happens, unfortunately. When you install patches, they may not install properly, can be disastrous. Always try to make sure you're backing up your data on a pretty regular schedule. I often say this, people don't think about backing up their data until they have a major data loss, but unfortunately it's too late at that point. If you've never had a major data loss, don't put yourself in that category, start making backups now. Kind of protect yourself. So you want to make sure all your data is backed up. Your computer's hooked up to a UPS or uninterruptible power supply, which is really nice. So some of the things that can happen is automatic updates can cause conflicts with current applications if they have not been updated to work properly with the new updates that are coming out. Hardware can stop working. The nice thing is if you're doing restore points, you can always just roll back the updates and go back to a previous known good version. Motherboard firmware BIOS updates, we know if there's a power loss during it, it's a bricked device. The other issue could be you're not installing the correct version. So make sure to verify the version you're going to be installing. If you break the device, fortunately, it's replaced the motherboard or the computer, whichever is cheaper. Also have to take into account the labor of replacing the motherboard into account when you're determining your costs. Backups not completing. If they hang up or you get error messages, the disk is full, you need to either delete some of the stuff that you're backing up or make sure you have a hard drive with sufficient space to handle the backups you're installing. Also, if you're on an enterprise level doing backups, you need to test your backups regularly to make sure you're actually getting the backups that you're supposed to get. I kid you not, someone I know worked for a global company. This company operated in, I think, 60 different countries and all over the US. And if you guys remember, was it last year, the year before, that really bad ice storm that hit Texas and they lost power and all that fun stuff. Pipes froze, a lot of burst pipes. Well, the geniuses, when they built the server room for this particular company, did not put it on a raised floor. So the servers were quite literally sitting on ground level. Usually you put like a raised floor above the ground specifically for things like this. Servers essentially got destroyed during this process. And for the last 6 months, they had not been testing their backups to make sure their backups were okay, and their systems weren't backing up at all. So they legit lost everything. All they had were the incremental backups for each individual location that was on site. And then they had to do data reconstruction. So long-term debt, anybody who had long-term debt with them basically got erased. They were going to have to go through and do manual ledgers and see if they could figure out where people were. It was catastrophic. Company was able to kind of recover. It's still working on that process. But I jokingly told my friend, I was like, if they're looking for somebody to create a disaster recovery plan, I'm willing to step up and help, because apparently their IT guy majorly dropped the ball. I was basically explaining, I was like, there's a lot of people that need to be fired for this. Because you're talking, their IT department is like 50 people. So it's not a small IT department. This is a big company. And I was like, their CIO, their, head of IT, like, basically the top 3 or 4 layers, they need to be gone. Because this is basic stuff that should have been done. But they got it back up and running. I'm not sure how bad the triage was with personnel, but always test your backups, as well as making sure you actually do the backups. So now we should kind of have an idea how to identify common preventative maintenance systems, run some updates necessary to keep Windows running smoothly. We should be a little more familiar with the command line. Are we expected to be experts yet? No, we're not. Just getting familiar with some of the tools. I do encourage you to go into test out into the sandbox in chapter 14, play around with them, see what they do, learn how they work, see what expected results look like. And then briefly talk about some common pitfalls that we may experience and how to either avoid them or what steps we need to take next. Questions, comments, concerns? I'm probably not going to ask for concerns tomorrow when we talk about security, because it'll be a long day.
I got a question.
All right, what's up, Kelly?
So since this is like kind of like 1002, so we wouldn't get any of those questions like kind of from the 1001 test?
You may see a couple questions from 1002 pop up on 1001, but for the most part, no.
Okay, because I was about to say, I did in 1001, I don't know what we were doing, but I did see the system file checker to check this thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, some of the command line stuff does overlap.
Okay, just wanted to mention. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?